Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shrimad Bhagavad Gita Granth Raj Ki Jai Bolo Shri Krishna Bhagavan Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavan Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribo. So tonight we're going to hear about how to guess correctly. If you want to be a leader, you have to be able to make the right decisions with the wrong information. That means you're a good leader. But if you have the right information, you make the wrong decisions, that means you're an idiot. And you shouldn't be in that position. So, the only way you can make the right decisions with the wrong information is if your destiny has been changed. And we have to think about this. How can you change your destiny? Can anyone change their karmic imprint on the world? No. But there is a way to do it. That's what we're going to discuss tonight. Because then, even though you have the wrong information, you'll make the right decision. Because your destiny has been changed. So, this question was asked to Srila Prabhupada. A person wrote a letter and said, I met an atheist, and he told me, if God knows anything, then his knowing everything means that people are just like puppets or machines. So, what do you think the answer to this is? If God knows everything, he knows what we're going to do in the future, then how do we have any free will? We're just like puppets in his hand. He's playing around with us. Let's have a little survey. How many people think this is true? Well, to give you a hint, the Shah of Iran, I was reading something that he wrote once, and he said, if there's one thing I believe in fate, in destiny. What is going to happen no matter what you do. Now, how many people would agree with the Shah of Iran? Go ahead, don't be afraid. There's no punishment here, only reward. What do you think, Prabhu? You believe that? Whatever your fate is, whatever your destiny is. You can make what? You can make it. No, we're not talking about making destiny. We know you can make destiny. But we already made a destiny in the past life. Can you in any way change that? In other words, the Shah of Iran said, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. I believe in fate. So what happened? He got thrown out. He got cancer and he died. Okay. He was the biggest. Shah of Iran and King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia tried to take over the entire world economy. I'm not kidding you. This is why the CIA got rid of him. And they also killed the king of Saudi Arabia. This is in the 1970s. They tried to take over the entire economy of the world. So they were megalomaniacs. Anyway, the Shah of Iran, before he got thrown out, Jimmy Carter supported Ayatollah Khomeini. He said, I believe in fate, in destiny. In other words, whatever your karma is from the past life, there's no way you can change it. How many people agree with this? You agree with it? You agree with it? Yes, yes. Now, if you don't chant Hare Krishna, it's true. If you don't chant Hare Krishna, if you don't engage in seva for Krishna, it's 100% true. So for the Shah of Iran, it was 100% true. He got what he deserved based on his previous life. But when Krishna says, Sarvadharmam parityaja, mam ekam saranam raja, aham tvam sarva papebhyo muksisyami mahasucha. He says, Arjuna, just give up all your misconceptions of life. I'm this, I am that. And surrender unto me. And I guarantee you 100%, Birkul, you will be freed from all sinful reactions, your previous karma. Mahasucha, you have nothing to worry about, nothing to fear, and nothing to hesitate for. Now, we're going to analyze this to see if it's true or not. So, a question was posed to a devotee who could not answer it. Some atheistic man said, so he was a professor, if you claim that God knows everything, then his foreknowing makes men very much like puppets or machines. So Srila Prabhupada, our Guru Dev, he answered that this is the opinion of people who think that God is like themselves. Just like once there were two fish and they were looking at the moon. And one fish said to the other, what's that? And the other fish said, it's a fish. He said, but how come it's so shiny? He said, because it's a shiny fish. And then the first fish said, now I understand. Now, is that an explanation of the moon? Is that a shiny fish? But this is an explanation they gave. Why? Because fish see everything else as fish. And liars see everyone else as liars, right? They say. So, when people hear about God, especially people that are highly contaminated by rajas and tamas, they simply project their imperfections, their limitations, their misconceptions on God. And they say, well, God is dancing with the gopis, I'm dancing with the prostitutes. What's the difference? You see. There's a big difference. So, for people who project their imperfections on the concept of God, they cannot understand anything. It's just like if you go to a doctor and you say, doctor, I think I have cancer. He said, well, I can help you. I think I can help you. Would you stay with that doctor? Right? He has cancer. How is he going to heal your cancer? Right? No, you would go to a doctor who doesn't have cancer, and have faith that he knows how to heal it. So, this is the problem. A person who projects his imperfections on God, what can he understand about God? He only sees himself. That's all. So, Krishna says, Avajananti mam mudha manasim tanam asritaha param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwara. He says, Avajananti mam mudha. People are like mudas. Mudas means like donkeys. Stupid like donkeys. Avajananti mam mudha. avajananti. They have no brain. Manasim tanam asrita. When they see me as Krishna, holding the flute with two arms, param bhavam ajananto, they have no understanding of my superior transcendental nature. Mama Bhuta Maheshwara. They don't understand that I am Maheshwara, the supreme proprietor of everything, and Mama Bhuta, the Lord of all living entities. They don't understand. They're like donkeys. Right. So, Krishna knows everything, and he's omnipotent. No one is as powerful as Krishna. He has all powers. And he knows, it's definitely a fact, he knows everything that's going to happen. Therefore, to save us, he says, Sarvadharmam Purityaja, Mamekam Saranam Braja, Ham Tvam Sarvapadevya, Maksusyami Masucha. Surrender unto me, I will protect you. How can he protect? What's his guarantee he's going to protect? Because he's the one that made the law of karma. He's the one that regulates the law of karma, and he's the one that can reverse the law of karma if he wants. So the only way to change our destiny, unfortunately, this Shah didn't ask me a question, otherwise I could have answered him. See, that's the symptom of a foolish person. There's two types of fools. One, they ask questions, they receive the answer, and they throw it away. Two is, they don't ask questions, they don't seek any answers. Both of them are fools. Just like you go to the doctor, you say, doctor, I have an earache. He said, okay, this is an antibiotic, you take it. So you go to the drugstore, you buy the antibiotic, you go home, you throw it in the garbage can. Why did you waste the doctor's time? Why did you waste your money? Why did you waste your time? You think your earache is going to go away? It'll eventually go away, maybe. Like when my father had cancer, he walked to the hospital. After they gave him the treatment to cure the cancer, we had to carry him back, and he died. He would have done better not going to the hospital at all. They actually killed him. He could have just stayed home, stopped smoking, eat a good diet, chant Hare Krishna or whatever, and he would have lived a better life. We're all going to die anyway, right? But he had a better chance staying at home. He went to the doctors, the hospital. They burned him with chemotherapy. Then they burned him with radiation. Then they said, okay, you're okay now. There's no more cancer. He came home and he died. So, sometimes it's good not to do anything, but pray. Now, what would you do if you're in an airplane and it started going down? Would you chant, I don't know, Vaishnava Januto? Would you chant that? Maybe, maybe not. Would you chant a Bollywood song? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you're crazy. What would you do if the plane started going down? What would you do, Prabhu? You would panic? How would that help the situation? Well, at least you're telling the truth. I wouldn't do that myself, but at least you're telling the truth. What would you, Prabhu? What would you do? You would chant Hare Krishna, right? Let's say you had a cell phone, you called up Obama, you said, the plane's going down, can you do something, President? Could he do anything? Did the United States do anything when Hurricane Katrina came to New Orleans? They have the strongest army in the world. They have atomic bombs, tanks, everything. They did nothing. The hurricane came and destroyed the whole American city. You see? So, who can help you when the plane is going down? If there's anybody, it's definitely not Mickey Mouse. It's not Donald Duck. And it's not Goofy. There's only one person that can help you, that's Krishna. Okay? So, if you're going to pray to Krishna in such a dire situation, why don't you pray to Krishna, or why don't we pray to Krishna all the time? You see? It's a good idea. So, therefore, Krishna knows what's going to happen. Therefore, he's begging you, please surrender unto me. Just like if you knew that your best friend was going to die in 2 weeks, what would you do? What would you do, man? If you knew for sure your best friend is going to die in 2 weeks, you knew for sure that they would die in a car accident 2 weeks from today, what would you do? You don't know? I would say, 2 weeks from now, I want to celebrate my birthday, but in your house. And she would say, oh, I'm honored. That's wonderful. And I'll go out and I'll do shopping. No. You just stay in the house. I'll bring everything. You don't have to leave the house. I'll bring everything. You can cook it, and we'll have a good time. She said, well, yeah, but I got to go get my brother. No. I'll pick up your brother that day. Because you know that person's going to die in an accident, car accident, right? So you would do everything so that person wouldn't leave the house that day. Is it not? Because you know what's going to happen if they leave the house. They're going to have a car accident. So in the same way, Krishna knows everything. That's why he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja, please, if you want to change your destiny, just surrender unto me. Because I know what your destiny is, and it's a mixed bag. A mixed bag means there's some good and there's some bad. And the bad is so bad that it outpaces the good, that it outstrips the good. Therefore, my dear friend, I'm begging you, sarva dharmam parityaja. Or else he says, daivihi esa gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mam evaye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. He says, it is virtually impossible to overcome my material energy. Mama maya duratyaya. Even the word duratya, you can tell it's a bad word, duratya. Right? Even the way it's pronounced doesn't sound nice. Duratya. So he says, Mama Maya, my material energy is duratma, very difficult, impossible to overcome. But mam evaye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. One who surrenders unto me can easily overcome it. You see, so in different places in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is begging us because he knows what's going to happen to us in the future. He's begging us, surrender unto me. You're not going to lose. Look what happened to Arjuna. He was destined to lose the battle of Kurukshetra. How could he fight against his own guru, Dronacharya? He taught him how to fight. He was a much greater fighter than Arjuna. How could he beat Bhisma Pitamaha? Bhisma Pitamaha was a Devata. There was no way he could beat him. And yet, Arjuna came out. There was no way he could beat Karna. Karna was actually better than Arjuna. But yet, he beat all of them. Only because Krishna protected him. Krishna was on his side. Krishna says, Mam evaye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite. You can easily overcome all these obstacles in life by surrendering unto me. So therefore, Krishna is begging us. So, because of this verse, Sarvadhamam Parityaja, and Mam evaye prapadyante, mayam etam tarantite, the future destiny of every one of us can be changed. This is confirmed also in the Brahma Samhita. Karmani nidahati kintucha bhakti bhajan, where it says, anyone who surrenders to Krishna, his destiny is changed by the omnipotent Lord. He's the Lord of destiny. Therefore, he can change it if he wants to. He takes charge of the devotees and guides him how the devotee can go back to Godhead, back home. This is the mercy of Krishna. He knows everything, and still he says, Sarvadharman Parityaja. Now, how do we know this? Well, we know from the life of Arjuna. When Jayadratha killed Arjuna's son, right, Abhimanyu, he was the principal person that hurt him with the help of the other Maharatis. At the end of the day, Arjuna said, tomorrow I will kill Jayadratha or I'll commit suicide. Now, Duryodhana was a very smart man. He had his spies in Arjuna's camp, and they immediately came back. They told him, and Duryodhana, he said, okay, then tomorrow's strategy is we will not fight the Pandavas, we will just protect Jayadratha. Then Arjuna will kill himself and will be victorious. So the next day came, Arjuna did everything possible to get to Jayadratha. He couldn't get to him. They protected him. The whole army, Duryodhana's army included the entire Yadu army. Because he had chosen Krishna's army, Arjuna had chosen Krishna. Now we're going to see why Arjuna made the better choice. So, the day comes to the end, the sun goes down. Arjuna is like really upset and he's very dejected. And Krishna said, "Hey Arjuna, what's the matter?" Arjuna said, "I made a promise, I made a vow that if I couldn't kill Jayadratha today, I would kill myself." So Krishna said, "Koi baat, don't worry, everything's all right." So how can it be all right? The sun went down, day is over. Just get your arrow ready to kill Jayadratha. But how can I do this? Hare Krishna. He said, "Are you ready?" He said, "Okay." You know what happened? The sun had gone down. Sun came up. Arjuna killed Jayadratha, but he had to be careful. See, he couldn't. Whoever cut his head off and his head touched the ground, the person that killed him, his head would burst also. He would die. So Arjuna had to shoot the arrow in such a way that Jayadratha's head would not touch the ground. So what did he do? Arjuna was one of the greatest archers in the world. Right? He shot it in such a way that it cleanly cut his head off and flew way up into the Himalayas where his father, Jayadratha's father, was meditating. And it landed right in his lap. And when it woke up his meditation, he looked at it and he threw it. And then he died also. And of course his son was dead. As soon as that happened, the sun went down, battle was over. Now you know why it's better to have Krishna on your side than the entire Yadu army. Is it not? Krishna changed Arjuna's destiny. That's not only once. Then at the end of the entire battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna said to Krishna, "Thank you so much. You're the best cousin anyone could have in this world." Krishna said, "Well, thank you, Arjuna." He said, "Okay, well, everything's over. You can step off the chariot." And Krishna said, "No, you get off first." He said, "What? No. I mean, I have to respect you. You're my guru. You're my everything. Krishna Mata, Krishna Pita, Krishna Dana Pran. You're my mother. You're my father. You're my life heir. You're my everything." He said, "I know, Arjuna. You get off first." He said, "No, this is a question of respect. I respect you. You must get off." He said, "Arjuna, if you say I'm your guru, are you going to listen to what I say or are you going to argue with me?" "No, you're right." See, that's the difference between having a guru and not having a guru. When you don't have a guru, you argue with everyone. "I think this is a better way to do it. Your idea is no good." But when you have a guru, now, you don't choose a guru blindly. You have to test the guru and he has to test you. And when you're absolutely sure that he's bona fide, or he or she is bona fide, and you can trust this person with your life, just like in my language, there's a proverb. The rope of a dishonest person will not save you from death. See? Let's say you're hanging over a cliff and a dishonest person is giving you his rope and he's holding on to it, right? And it's your only lifeline. So this proverb says, the rope of a dishonest person will not save your life. He'll say, "Okay, well, you have a beautiful wife," and let go of the rope. You see? So, Krishna told Arjuna, "Do you accept me as guru?" Arjuna said, "Yes, of course." "Then listen to what I say." That's what guru is. You listen to what he says. Like I know a person, he had told me, "Prabhu, I want to marry this girl." So I said, "Who is she?" So he told me about her. I said, "Don't do it." So, "Okay, Prabhu, I listen to everything you say." So he went and did it. So he came back and said, "Prabhu, I accept you as my guru." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah. But I got married. But I want to convince you why I got married. Why I think you made a mistake." I said, I made a mistake. Okay, fine. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll leave it at that. So then, what happened? He was having problems with his wife. So I said, look, did anyone force you to get married? He said, no. I said, therefore, you have an absolute responsibility to take care of your wife. No matter what. You can't get angry. You can't become abusive. Never hit your wife. Your wife is your guru now. You should respect her as a guru. He said, guru? What is she going to teach me? I said, look how nervous you are. Well, she says all these things. Well, listen, I told you, don't you remember? I told you not to marry this lady, but you insisted. Now you've done it. You can't reject your responsibility. You have to take care of her. So how can I take care of her? She says these things. I said, can you calm down a little bit? Are you crazy or what? So you have to respect your wife. She's going to teach you the most important lesson of your life. I said, what's that? Patience and tolerance. I said, maybe you're right. So every time he says I'm right, he never follows what I say. So he went and hit his wife. The wife called the police. He ended up in jail. Then, when he got out of jail, finally, you have to post bail, everything. And they warned him, you're not allowed to see your wife until the whole legal case is finished. You have a restraining order because she thinks you might hurt her. I said, okay. So he came to see me and said, what should I do, Prabhu? I said, look, get rid of your apartment, send your wife back to her parents until this whole thing clears up. He said, no, I can't do that. I said, you can't do that. So why did you ask me what I should do then? I'm telling you what you should do. Why don't you listen to what I say? No, that's not a good idea. It's not a good idea. Okay, now look, you do whatever you think you should do. Don't ask me anymore. No, I accept you as my guru. I said, what does that mean? You accept me as your guru, but you don't listen to anything I say. You're trying to convince me after I just told you not to do it. He said, no, you got to help me convince her to stay here. I said, I'm not helping you to do anything anymore because you don't listen to what I say. So he convinced his wife to stay. Right. Then 2 weeks later, he threatened to kill his wife in some kind of email, right? She went again to the police and showed it to the police. Police arrested him. You're right. You see what happens, right? Now his life is ruined. Now he'll be deported if he's lucky, and he'll never be allowed back in the United States, and all these complications, right? Now, he consistently refused to take good advice. So what can you do with a person like that? He consistently kept telling me, you're wrong. What can you do with a person like that? Now, if I'm wrong, he knows who to blame. But in this case, he can only blame himself because he wouldn't listen to any good reason. Okay, so I'm telling you this because unless we get the help, just like Arjuna got the help of Krishna, unless we get the help of a genuine representative of Krishna, it's not possible to change our destiny. We need some help. Because the help is we find out who Krishna is. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not just a historical character. See, the biggest fault of modern Hinduism is to believe that the Vedic literatures are mythology. Everyone thinks it's mythology. Only a very few people believe it as being the truth. It's like Greek mythology. It's like Roman mythology. It's like Chinese mythology, and this is Indian mythology. That is the biggest mistake Hindus have made in modern times. And all the people that translate the Vedas, they translate the Mahabharata, they don't believe that Krishna is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead or Ram. They just believe it's a historical character. This is a cultural thing. It's part of our history. And it's a nice mythology. This is the biggest mistake Hinduism has made. And because of that, people are being misled. But Arjuna did not take it, Krishna's words, as mythology. He followed him. So he stepped off the chariot. And then Hanumanji, who was on the flag of the chariot, he jumped off the chariot also. And then when Krishna stepped off the chariot exploded into flames. And Arjuna said, Krishna, what does this all mean? I don't understand. He said, Arjuna, when Bhisma Pitamaha sent his arrows, there was no way you could survive. The only reason you're still alive is because I was on the chariot. So if I had stepped off first, you would have died immediately. Those arrows would have burned the chariot and you. Therefore, you had to step off first. Then, of course, Hanumanji jumped off the flag, and then I stepped off. You see? How many times did Krishna change Arjuna's destiny during the battle of Kurukshetra? I can tell you another story. On the 9th or 10th day of the battle, Duryodhana went to see Bhisma Pitamaha. He said, Pitaji, he said, Pitamaha, he said, you're not fighting seriously. You like the Pandavas. They're your best favorites. And you're not giving your best effort here. I mean, you could kill them easily. I know that. You know that. Why don't you kill them? He said, okay, you want me to kill them? He said, yes. He said, okay, I promise you tomorrow I will kill them all. He said, no, you don't have to kill them all. He said, just kill Arjuna. He said, okay, I'll kill Arjuna. Promise? He said, I promise. Tatastu. So, Krishna, see, the Pandavas didn't have spies, but they had Krishna. Krishna told Arjuna that night, he said, Arjuna, you remember one time Duryodhana promised to give you anything you wanted? He said, oh, yeah, I remember. That's a long time ago. I said, yes. He said, you should go and ask for it now. He said, ask for what? He said, Bhisma Pitamaha has 5 arrows to kill you and your brothers tomorrow. And he's promised Duryodhana to do it. He said, how do you know? He said, don't worry. I'm also Paramatma. I know everything. He said, go and see him tonight and remind him that he promised you that and ask for those arrows. He said, how can I do that? He said, how can you do it? Because I'm telling you to do it. He said, okay, I'm sorry. I'll do it. You see? Guru can speak like that. I'm telling you to do it. He said, okay, I'll do it. So he went. See, in the Vedic times, they would fight during the day. When the sun went down, they would come together and party, even though during the day they were trying to kill each other. That's a civilized type of warfare. Nowadays, at nighttime, they sneak up on you and try and kill you while you're sleeping. See? So, Arjuna went to Duryodhana's camp, and when Duryodhana saw him, he said, hey, Arjuna, Prabhu, come on in. How are you? Did you come to ask me to stop the war? I'll do it if you ask me. See, that's chivalry. You know, these are Kshatriyas. They're men of honor. Arjuna said, no, I don't want to stop the war. I said, then how come you came? He said, you remember one time you promised to give me anything you wanted? Anything I want? He said, yeah, I remember that. So what do you want? You tell me, I'll give you. He said, I want the 5 arrows. So what 5 arrows? The 5 arrows the Bhisma Pitamaha said going to kill me and my brothers tomorrow. He said, how did you know about that? Never mind. Just give me the 5 arrows. Duryodhana gave it to him. And when Duryodhana told Bhisma Pitamaha knew that Krishna did this. Why? Because Krishna is Bhaktavatsal. He loves his devotee. You see. So now that's 3 times during the 18 days of the Battle of Kurukshetra that Krishna changed Arjuna's destiny. His destined demise. He changed it. You don't think he can do it for us? He's promising in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam Parityaja, Mamekam Saranam Braja, Ham Tvam Sarvapapebhyo Moksisyami Mahasucha. All you have to do is just chant Hare Krishna, dance, take prasadam, listen to my bad jokes, and be happy. That's all. Is it difficult? I don't say, well, no, you have to sit like this and put your head behind your ear, like here. And then hold your nose like this and go. That's nonsense. You can't do that. All you have to do is chant, dance, take prasadam, be happy. Is that difficult? There's some people say, no, that's too easy. Give you something hard. You see. Those are unfortunate people that talk like that. But the fortunate people said, this is what I've been looking for. Because all these other things, I can't really do it. But this thing, I can do in my home, with my family. It's practical. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. I can chant all day long, Hare Krishna. I can take prasad all day long, and I can dance all day long. And I enjoy hearing your bad jokes also. This is the way we change our destiny. So, if we think that Krishna is like ourselves, then there's no hope. But when he takes charge of his devotee, the devotee that surrenders unto him, he guides him how the devotee can go back home, back to Godhead, back to him. This is his special mercy. So, Krishna says, Tesam satati yuktanam vajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhayogam tam yenamam upayanti te. He says, for one who surrenders unto me, who serves me with love and devotion, I give that person all the knowledge they need to come back to me. Then he says, Tesam aham evanakam paratam aham agyanamam tamam. Nasyami atmabhavasto jnana dipena basvato. He says, I, dwelling in the heart of every living entity, light up with the lamp of knowledge, jnana dipa, the ignorance, the darkness born of ignorance. So Krishna will literally light up our heart with transcendental knowledge if we surrender unto him. What does surrender mean? It's sweet. Just like when a man gets down on his knees and says, will you marry me? And the woman said, oh, yes. So what did he do? When he got down on his knees, he surrendered. When you get down on your knees, you surrender, right? There was one Indian man, he was a nationalist in the Indian liberation movement. His name was Surendranath. What was his last name? Anyway, his first name was Surendranath. So the British used to make fun of him. He says, he is surrender not. Right? They used to make fun of him, because, he didn't want to surrender to the British, right? So anyway, we have to surrender, but surrender is a sweet thing. Does Krishna look like a bad person? He doesn't look like Saddam Hussein, does he? You surrender to Krishna is a very sweet thing. It's a loving thing. See? So if we surrender to Krishna, then we have nothing to worry about. He's going to take care of us, like he took care of Arjuna and so many others. So, once there were 3 sons, and their father was dying. So he told them, my sons, he said, I want to tell you how I'm going to divide my wealth amongst you. He said, but there's only one problem. Only 2 of you are my real sons. Your mother told me right before she died that one of the sons is illegitimately conceived. But she died before she told me which one of you is that son. So I can't figure it out myself. But when I die, you go to this one sadhu. He's in this far-off village, and he'll be able to decide which one of you is not the real son. So it's not that the one that's not the real son will get nothing. He'll only get some money, but he won't get any of the land and other possessions that I have. So the boy said, okay, Pitaji, So he died, and the three brothers set out for the far-off village to meet the sadhu. And as they were walking on the dirt road, they saw some footprints of a camel. And the first son said, "I think the camel can only see out of its right eye." They didn't see the camel, but they're just looking at the footprints. And the third son, the youngest son, said, "And I think the camel is missing one tooth." And then they walked a little bit more, and they noticed that the camel was making frequent stops. And there were foot, knee, and hand imprints in the ground on the soft soil. And then the first brother again, the eldest brother, said, "And I think the camel was carrying a sack of butter on one side and a sack of honey on the other side." And then the second brother, he spoke up for the first time, and he said, "And I think the camel's tail was cut off and was only a stump of a tail." And then the third brother said, "And there was probably a pregnant woman riding on the back of the camel." After making these observations, the brothers continued to walk, and they met a man that was walking toward them, and he was in a hurry. And when he saw them, he asked the three brothers, "Did you see a camel?" And the first brother said, or one of the brothers said, "Did he have one blind eye?" And the man said, "Yeah." And then he said, another brother said, "Was he missing a tooth?" And he said, "Yeah." And the other one said, "Did he have a stunted tail? Was his tail cut off?" He said, "Yeah." And then the other one said, "Was he carrying a load of honey and a load of butter?" He said, "Yeah." And then the last one said, "And he must have had a pregnant woman riding on him." He said, "Yeah, how did you know?" He said, "Tell me where my camel is." They said, "We don't know, we didn't see it." He said, What do you mean you didn't see it? You just described it perfectly." Well, they said, "But we don't know where it is, and we didn't see it." So the man was really shocked, and he got a little upset. He said, "You know so many things about the camel, and you say you didn't see it? You must have seen it." "We never saw your camel, sir, I promise you." "Well, how did you know so much?" So the man became so frustrated. The boys kept saying, "We don't know where it is." So he was really suspicious. He thought maybe these boys were the thieves. So he went to the far-off village where there was the sadhu. He went ahead of them, because he was the sadhu, and he was also what you call the head of the panchayat of that village. Right? So the boys kept going, and when they arrived in the village to see the sadhu was in full session of the panchayat, and the boys walked in and they wanted to meet him, and the sadhu said, "Wait 1 minute, I have to ask you some questions." And he said, "This man says that you perfectly described his camel, but you claim you didn't see it. This is very suspicious. What do you have to say?" So the elder brother said, "Sir, we swear that we did not see the camel. We were able to understand something about the camel just by observing the tracks in the dirt road. We carefully looked at them, and we made certain assumptions based on our observations." So he said, "What led you to believe that the camel had one blind eye?" So the brother that noticed that, he said, "I noticed that the corn was growing on one side of the road. It was growing on both sides of the road, but the camel only ate some of it on one side of the road. Therefore, I assumed that his one eye was blind. He was only eating the corn on the right side of the road, not on the left. So I assumed that his left eye is blind." The sadhu said, "That makes sense." He said, "Then why did you think that the camel was missing a tooth?" So the other brother said, "Well, sir, I saw a repeated pattern in the grass that remained after the camel took a bite. When he cropped the grass to bite it, there was always a tuft of grass that remained. That indicated to me that he must have a missing tooth." So the sadhu said, good for you, he said. That's a good observation. He said, but how did you know that the camel only had a stump of a tail, that his tail was cut off? And he said, well, the third brother said, well, sir, he said, I noticed the dung, the stool of the camel. It was always in a perfect small round. But you know how camels are, right? When they pass stool and urine, they kick it. They make it, they spread it with their tail. Now, this is true. One time, my kids and I went to the zoo in San Francisco. And we were watching a camel. And my kids were making fun. Like that, right? And the camel was eating something, just looking at us. All of a sudden, we were sprayed. The camel passed through and flipped it over his head right onto us. That's what you get for making fun of the camel. Don't ever do that, right? So he said, by seeing the perfectly round form of the stool of the camel, I assumed that he had a stump of a tail and not a full tail. So he said, the camels are always wagging their tail and they disperse their dung and urine. They never leave it in a neat mound. Then he said, but how did you know that the camel had two saddles, one of honey and one of butter? So another brother said, well, this was the eldest brother. He said, I saw that there were bees on one side of the road and ants on the other. And therefore the bees were going for the honey and the ants were going for the butter. The sadhu said, pretty good, he said. But how did you know the camel was carrying a pregnant woman? He said, well, we saw that the camel was making regular stops. So we assumed that someone had to be stopping because they had some bladder problem. And then we saw that the way the person got off the camel was first to go down with their feet, land their feet in the soil, and then go down with their hands in the soil, and then stand up. Therefore, either they were very fat or they were carrying a baby. But we assumed that they were carrying a baby because they were making a lot of stops. The sadhu said, very good. He said, you guys are really good. So then he said, you have a plausible explanation for every detail. But I'm still not convinced you guys are innocent. So the sadhu said, wait here for a moment while I fetch a large box with a lid on it. They said, what for? He said, you'll see. Just be patient. So he went, he got a box, a lock box, and he put an orange in it and he locked it. And he came out and he said, can you tell me what's in the box? So the elder brother said, well, how can we tell you? He said, you were able to tell me so much about the camel without seeing it. Why can't you tell me what's in the box? Okay. He said, if you can tell me what's in the box, I'll let you go free. So the eldest brother held the box and he began to shake it. And he heard an object moving in it. So he said, it must be round by the way it's making noise. And then the second brother said, well, if it's round, I have a hunch that it's yellow or orange. And the third brother said, well, if it's yellow and round, it must be an orange. So the judge looked at that. He was shocked. He said, how did you know? He said, well, we didn't know. You knew, but we just assumed it. So then the judge understood that it was very possible they never saw the camel, but they had made all those right assumptions about it. So then he said, listen, you guys are really interesting. Why don't you stay for dinner tonight? He said, okay. So the judge went to his wife, or the sadhu went to his wife, and he said, make some fresh yogurt, make some fresh bread, cook vegetables, get some fresh grapes for dessert, and make some nice rice pulao. So the wife said, okay. And she set the table. She made everything. Then they sat down, and the judge did not sit with them. He stayed behind the curtain to watch them. So when they started to eat, the sadhu said, you guys eat, I have to do something. So he went behind the curtain, he was watching them. So when they began to eat, the eldest brother said, the yogurt was made from the milk of a cow that was fed with old hay, and the grain had rat droppings in it. So the judge heard this, he wrote this down. Right. Then the second brother said, and the bread was freshly made, but I detected that the woman who kneaded it was having her menstrual period. The judge wrote that down. Then the third brother started eating, and he said, I think that this sadhu is a competent person, but I don't think he knows who his real father is. The judge, he was going to write it down. He said, what is this nonsense? But he wrote it down anyway. He's saying that the judge's mother must have lied to him about who the father is. So, and then they began to eat the dessert, the grapes, and at that point, the eldest brother said, the grapes are fresh, but the grapevines, where these grapes were taken from, had their roots in a graveyard of dead corpses. The judge writes this down. Again, he's shocked. He doesn't know what to think. So, when they finished, the judge first went to his mother's house. And he was very upset. And when he entered, he said hello to his mom. And he asked her in a very serious voice, he said, Mom, he said, Mata, I have a doubt. Someone told me I'm not your legitimate son. It's absolutely necessary that you tell me the truth right now. Am I your son or not? She started to cry. She said, my dear boy, she said, your father and I couldn't conceive. And he wanted a son. So after many years, we were so desperate. We went to this one poor family right after they had a baby, and we bought you. We had to give them a lot of money so that we could adopt you. We never told you, but we're surprised. How did you know? Nobody knew. Only we knew. That's okay, he said. Thank you for telling me the truth. And then he went right away to the dairy farmer from whom his wife had purchased the milk to make the yogurt. And he said, can I look at your barn? The dairy farmer said, wow, what for? I want to look at your barn. Well, okay. So they went to the barn, and he looked in the hay and everything. There were rat droppings in the hay that the cows were eating. And then he went after that to the vine keeper, to the grape grower. And he asked the villagers there, he said, what's the story of this field? So he found one very old man. He said, oh, why you want to bring up the past? He said, I have to know. Did something happen here? He said, when I was a little boy, I witnessed a massacre here. At least 200 people were killed. And they threw them in an open ditch and they covered it. He said, thank you. And then he returned to the house and he spoke to his wife. He said, now I want you to tell me the truth. I asked you to cook this meal today, but are you having your monthly period? And she said, how did you know? Is it true? She said, yes. So now he was in a dilemma. These guys, they guessed perfectly just by eating the food. So he entered the room and he excused himself for not eating, and he explained how he listened to their conversation. He noted down every one of their suppositions, and he verified them. And he asked the eldest brother, how did you know that the cows gave milk. And the milk was made into yogurt, but the cows were fed dry hay with rat droppings. Now, because it's late today, this story goes on. It's a very long story. I'm going to continue next week. You're going to have to come back next week. But this is a very, very interesting story, believe me. We're not even halfway through it here. You got to come back next week to hear the rest of this story. This is very, very interesting. You're going to be thrilled when we get to the end of the story, okay? So now, there's not much time, so we'll have our tea.